Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys. Section 9. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys, A Midsummer Ramble Through the Dolomites, by Amelia B. Edwards. Chapter 4. At Cortina, Part 3. Next morning we ordered the carretta to take us to Falzarego. It would be difficult, perhaps, to say why, but we were longing to see the Marmolata, and could not rest till we had achieved, at least, a distant glimpse of him. In the first place, it is supposed to be the highest of all the Dolomites. In the second, its snowfields and glaciers are more extensive than those of any of its neighbours, and in the third place, it is so hemmed in on all sides by other mountains, that it is very difficult to obtain a view of it at all. The morning was somewhat doubtful. The Tofana had on its helmet of cloud, and though the sun shone brilliantly at times, there was an unsettled, uncertain look about the rolling cumuli that kept us hesitating till nearly 11 a.m. Then old Ghedina pronounced in favour of the weather, and we resolved to venture. I shall not soon forget our dismay at first sight of the carretta. It was simply a wooden trough on 4 wheels, some 7 feet in length by 3½ in breadth, with a crosswise plank to sit upon. The horse, a magnificent light chestnut full 17 hands high, with a huge leather collar like an Elizabethan ruff, towered above the vehicle, and a boy sat on the shafts to drive. Springs, of course, there were none, cushions there were none, but mats and rugs were piled in abundantly, and so we started. Our way lay over the bridge, and up past the cross where we had rested and sketched a day or two before. Again the great view over the valley became unrolled like a scroll beneath our feet. Again the Cristallo, the Croda Malcora, Sorapis, and Antelao seemed to rise as we rose, and the Tofana loomed nearer and more threatening with every step of our progress. Now, mounting ever higher among green slopes gorgeous with wildflowers, and through pine woods all abloom with strawberry blossoms, we left the Cortina view behind, and passed close under the southwest face of the Tofana, so close that we could distinctly see the mouth of a famous cavern, which is said to penetrate for many hundred feet into the heart of the mountain. Seen from the Tre Sassi road, it looks perfectly inaccessible, a mere rabbit hole in the face of a vertical and triangular precipice, like the entrance to the Great Pyramid. This cavern, however, is one of the sights of Cortina, and can be reached without difficulty when there is an accumulation of snow upon the slopes beneath. And now, as we mount higher, rounding the last buttresses of the Tofana, and coming in sight of the first outlying ridge of Monte Lagazuoi, we begin to meet frequent groups of peasants, some 2 and 3, some 12 or 15 strong, some carrying huge loads of homespun frieze and linen on their backs, some laden with wooden ware, some with live poultry, all in their holiday clothes, and all bound for the great Sagro. They are of all ages, and apparently of all grades, old folks and young, farmers and farm servants, a stumpy, sturdy, fresh-coloured, honest-looking race, the women with legs like pillars, and the men averaging from 5'5" to 5'7" in height. The old men wear knee breeches and comical little frieze coats, very short and full in the skirts, with 2 large buttons set high up in the middle of their backs, like a pair of eyes. The young fellows affect trousers and embroidered braces, and carry little bundles of coloured feathers and artificial flowers in their hats. The costumes of the girls, however, are quite overwhelming, and unlike anything that we have yet seen. They wear hats like the men, and adorned in the same manner, dark green, blue, or brown skirts laid in close folds like the plaiting of a kilt, and starting from just between the shoulders, like a sack, bodices open in front and laced with purple braid, sleeves tight to the arm and wrist, but slashed at the top with a puffing of white linen, and round their necks bright scarlet and yellow handkerchiefs of printed cotton. What people are these? We asked, as the first of many such apparitions appears before us at a turn of the road. To which the boy on the shafts, a laughing, merry fellow named Giovanni, replies that these are contadini from Buchenstein, Luvinallungo, and Carfora. "But Corfara is a long way off," exclaims L., who is better up in her maps than myself, and knows something of the distances. Some of them come 40, 50, 60 miles over the mountains. Some walk all night, both coming and going. Ecco!" with a critical glance at the pillars before mentioned. "What are the miles to a donzella like that?" Meanwhile we are suffering agonies of dislocation, for the road, which is only just wide enough for our wheels, and overhangs a precipice at the bottom of which foams a roaring torrent, is full of loose stones, over which the caretta jolts and blunders, creaks, leaps, and rolls in such a distracting manner that we are fain at last to get out and walk. The glen grows narrower, and the castellated rocks which we had already observed from Cortina are seen high above sloping woods on the opposite bank of the stream. Giovanni, who knows everything, informs us that they are here called the Torrette, and form part of the crest of Monte Nuvulau, and that the torrent, which takes its rise somewhere among the fastnesses of the Lagazuoi, is known as the Costina. More and more pedestrians, meanwhile, keep trooping past. The farther we go, the thicker they come. Where will they all sleep tonight? The Aquila Nera and the Stella d'Oro, were they each 4 times their present size, would not hold more than half of them, and yet this is only one road out of many. At this moment they are tramping into Cortina from Auronzo, from Pieve de Cadore, and from all the villages of the Ampezzo Thal. There will be 1,500 strangers, says our driver, in Cortina tonight. And now, quite suddenly, we come upon a better dressed group than any we have yet met. 2 tall, gentlemanly-looking young men and a lady, followed by a countryman with their luggage on his back. The lady is young and pretty, with a rose in her black hair and no bonnet. The young men lift their hats as they pass. The countryman, plodding after them, looks up with a somewhat knowing expression and touches his cap. But what is he carrying on his back? Not their luggage, after all. A side saddle! A large, new, London-made side saddle with a 3rd pommel to screw and a velvet-lined stirrup dangling down behind it. It was our own messenger. It was Madame Pezzé's saddle! Hearing a duet of joyful exclamations in the rear, the young lady turned round, smiling. The young men came forward, smiling also. They were Madame Pezzé's 2 sons, Lieutenant Cesare Pezzé, an ex-Garibaldian officer, and young Agostino Pezzé, who, with his mother, keeps the inn at Caprile. The damsel with the rose in her hair was Agostino's wife. They had come over the pass on foot, and were bound, like every one else, for the Sagro at Cortina. Concluding, of course, that we were on our way to Caprile, their surprise was great that we should have left Cortina without waiting for the festival. But they were still more astonished on finding that we had come up all this way only to peep at the Marmolata, and go back again. "Shall we get a good view?" I asked, somewhat anxiously, for the clouds had been gathering gloomily during the last half-hour. They shook their heads and looked doubtful. The mists were thickening fast, they said, on the other side. We must push on at once for the top, and delay for nothing at the Hospice. The mountain was quite clear half an hour ago, but soon there would be nothing of it visible. This opinion brought our interview to an abrupt conclusion, and with the promise of meeting again tomorrow, sent us hurrying away towards the Hospice, a small white cottage by the roadside, about 1/4 of a mile ahead. Here we left the caretta, bade Giovanni attend to the comforts of his horse, and hastened on alone towards the top. We had but to follow the road, which swept round and across a wild slope of barren moor bounded by the crags of Lagazuoi on the one hand, and by the low-lying ridge of Monte Nuvulau on the other. Tall posts, each the stem of a stout fir tree, were here set at regular intervals along the side of the path, like telegraph posts, to mark the course of the road, a necessary precaution at this height, 7,073 feet, where the snow lies deep for 8 months out of every 12. Even now, on the 6th of July, every rift and hollow held its yet unmelted snowdrift. And now a rough wayside cross comes into sight a few yards farther ahead. A swift runner overtakes us, and Giovanni, breathless and flushed, exclaims, "Ecco, Signora! Ecco la croce! Di là vedremo la Marmolata!" See, Signore, yonder is the cross. From there we shall see the Marmolata." And from there, by rare good fortune, we do see it, a huge roof-shaped mass, sloping and smooth, and snowy white against a leaden sky. For vastness of expression and extent of snow, as seen from this side, it recalls Mont Blanc. Distance, instead of diminishing its bulk, seems by contrast with surrounding heights to enhance it. The two valleys of Andraz and Luvinallongo, the Monte Padon and a whole sea of minor peaks occupy the intervening space, and yet the Marmolata seems to fill the scene. But only for a few seconds. Even as we stand there, eagerly gazing at it, the summit becomes dimmed, the outline fades, a pale grey tint spreads over the snowfields, and there remains only a blurred, gigantic, indefinite something, scarcely to be distinguished from the mist by which it is surrounded. "Diavolo of a Marmolata!" exclaims Giovanni. "The Signoras were only just in time, but they have seen him pulito." Now this word pulito, clean, in one sense or another, is always on the tip of Giovanni's tongue, and, as I soon afterwards find, is used indiscriminately for clear, brilliant, successful, intelligible, and a dozen other meanings throughout this part of the Tyrol. Your mule goes pulito. Your new boots fit you pulito. Your field glass shows objects pulito. You achieve a creditable bit of climbing, and are complimented on having done it pulito. Your driver was drunk last evening, but you are assured that he is pulito, in the sense of sober, this morning. It is, in short, a word of most elastic capabilities, but somewhat puzzling to strangers for that reason. The Marmolata having retired from the scene, we now turn back, taking a short cut across the dreary Col, and finding by the way some exquisite specimens of wild Daphne Cenorum, abundance of the small mountain gentian (Gentiana verna), and large clusters of a very lovely, tiny pink flower with wax-like petals, minute and close as a lichen, and unlike anything that either of us has ever seen before. Arrived at the hospice, and being by this time very hungry, we go in and are welcomed by a clean, smiling padrona who, because her one public room is full of peasants eating, drinking, and smoking, invites us into the kitchen. A model kitchen, like a kitchen in a Dutch picture, with a floor of bright red bricks, and a roaring wood fire, and rows upon rows of brass and copper pans shining like mirrors. She proves to be richer, however, in cooking utensils than in provisions, for dry bread, eggs, butter, and a coarse, uneatable mountain cheese are all she has to offer. Still, with eggs and butter one is not obliged to starve. The writer, in a moment of happy inspiration, undertakes the part of cook, and offers to concoct a certain dish known as buttered eggs, or, more politely, as hasty omelette. So an apron is borrowed, and, to the unbounded entertainment of the landlady and her servant, the savoury mess is prepared in a few minutes. From that moment I am known at Falzarego as the Signora Cuoca, the Signora Cook, am greeted by that title the next time I appear at the hospice, and am remembered by it, doubtless, to this day. By the time we are again ready to start, the mists have rolled up to the top of the pass, and the sky all round looks black and threatening. Some peasants outside predict a storm, and counsel us to get down into the valley as quickly as may be. So the chestnut is hastily put to, and we rattle off just as the first heavy drops come splashing down to a low accompaniment of very distant thunder. The storm, however, if there was a storm, remained locked in on the other side of the pass. We soon left it behind, and long before we reached the point leading to the Crepa di Belvedere, the sun was shining brilliantly. End of section 9.